So we have something very special here. I've been anticipating this one for quite some time, and I'm very happy that it's finally in existence and that we can finally get it now. I want to thank everybody for this year, man. You guys have been so amazing to the channel. Thank you so much for all the love and support. We do have the greats of the year or the best of the year's videos coming up. There's going to be multiple, so it's not just going to be one. So, you stay tuned for that. But let's get into this knife, which is the new Quiet Carry Large WAYPOINT. I've been wanting this since the first one, since the smaller one. And I gotta say, it is much bigger than I thought it was gonna be. Looking at Stasa 23's video, not only is it much longer, I know it doesn't look like it, but it is significantly bigger. But not only longer, also in every single other dimension, from thickness to the blade to the width, just everything. So, and we're gonna check out, I know we're checking out next to his brother right now, but we're gonna check him out next to some of his cousins here in 1 second. But first, let's go through the things I love about this, because I do have some things that I don't like about it, or some nitpicks that we'll get into. But first, we have a beautiful, beautiful hollow ground, deep hollow ground MAGNACUT blade. I'm waiting to find out the HRC. Hopefully I'll be able to write it on the screen, but if not, I'll get back to you guys. But it has a modified clip point or modified drop point blade, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But like I said, very thin behind the edge. The blade stock thickness is 120 thousandths. And it gets down to about 17 thousandths behind the edge, which, considering how narrow the blade is, that's really good. And it stays that thick going up. So as you sharpen it, it's going to stay nice and thin behind the edge. So, and the blade stock is not crazy thick, at 120 thousandths. That's a solid blade thickness without being like, crazy. So great thickness. It's kind of that happy medium thickness. Anyways, perfect sharpening tool and plunge grind. This is how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. Perfection. I love that. You can see the plunge grind starts here and it ends right there. So you have a lot of life to sharpen off. Now the handle is a titanium liner lock with, you can see the steel lock bar insert, nice thick robust liners with G10 micro milled scales over the top. Now the G10 is nice and grippy with the micro milling. However, underneath the clip, it's nice and smooth because we have a deep carry wire clip, and you wouldn't want to go over. See, that's the thing, is that on this side, you're going to have to deal with it, but on this side, you don't. So, if you do reverse the clip, you are going to have to worry about the texturing of this. But anyways, I like how they put the cutout on the inside, even though it's still G10 scales, which is really cool. G10 back spacer. Now, the thickness, like I said, is so much thicker that in the hand, this thing is hand filling. And I love, you guys already know this, I love neutral ergos like this because I can use it in any direction very comfortably. It's going to be the same all the way around, whether I'm doing pinch grips, forward grips, reverse gas station knife fighting grips, or maybe cutting straps, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's going to be equally as comfortable all the way around, which I think makes, one, is really good for work knives and things, because even like, say if I wanted to jam this into like, say, a container to drain it or something, just giving an example of where you'd stab something, right? The handle is very grippy, and because you have this little ridge for your finger, you're not slipping. This thing is not slipping out of your hand. It is very grippy and very well done. You can see the jimping on the spine right here. If you're choked back, you got that jimping, or up here, and then if you choke up, they have jimping all the way up to right there. So it works out pretty well for that, and because there's no flipper tab, you can get them nice and tight to that edge. All in all, as far as use goes, yeah, this one's going to be a phenomenal user. Now, the access to the lock bar is really, really well done. It is very, very comfortable. I love that. And I love that Quiet Carry cares about that, which, so it seems. But the action is on washers, so it's not bearing action. Still really good action for washers, though. You have a very big, or a lot bigger thumb stud than the original. So you have a platform for your thumb. Great place to launch off of. Now, like I said, it's not going to be false shut action, but you can reverse flick it still. You can slow roll it. You can thumb flick it, and you know, the action for washer action is decent, you know, and it's just going to continue to break in more and more and more. The slim profile works really good in and out of the pocket, like, you know, for carry and stuff, even though it's not as slim as the original. Now, as far as it next to some of its cousins, before we get into the negatives, you can see it here. Actually, the first one would be the LC. So we have the Quiet Carry LC. We have the Quiet Carry Drift Large, and then here is the 9. You know what, maybe I should raise you guys up a little bit. And then, you know what, and then the last would be the WAYPOINT. So you guys can kind of see it right there. You know, you see it goes from bigger to large, or from largest to smallest on this list. Now, as far as the negatives, let's talk about some nitpicks. So, one, I kind of wish it was on bearings. So this thing has, like, I want it to be like this, where it's just, or you know what, actually even better, like this, the 9. The 9 has such good action. This is so satisfying. Phenomenal detent, phenomenal brake, stupid smooth. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen it with bearings. Hopefully they'll do that in the future. The washers is really cool, don't get me wrong. I like washer knives, but I do prefer knives with bearings. You know, they're just, they're easier to rinse out. I know some people would argue, well, for a work knife, washers are going to be better. Now, they might be better at retracting dust a little bit more, but as far as, you know, struggling with dirt, dust, and sand and stuff, bearings are better because you can rinse them out. You can rinse them out very easily. You don't have to take apart the knife. Washers, you have to take completely apart and clean. So once they get dirty, the bearings are much easier to deal with, and much easier to deal with, period. But yeah, the washers might keep out some dust and dander a little bit better, but the best is always going to be Teflon for something like that. Anyways, you know, I just think the action would you know, massively increase. Now, as far as some more negatives, one thing is I really wish this was titanium like this one. I would have loved to have seen it be the full titanium, even though this is a liner lock. I know this one's a titanium liner lock with an LC200N steel lock bar insert, by the way. I would have loved to have seen it be full tie. Now, I'm sure they're going to do some full tie versions, but, you know, just as, you know, my first experience, man, if this thing was full tie, my goodness, I would have loved that. But like I said, I'm sure they're going to do that. It's just the one I have is not that one. Now, as far as more nitpicks, one nitpick is, you know, and this is another nitpick, is this thing is thick. Now, I'm not saying I wish it was this thin, but I do kind of wish, and I'm on the fence of whether or not this is true or not. I'm still struggling with whether or not I like it better, thicker like this, or if I'd rather have it as slim as this one. This one had such a slicey blade at 90 thousandths. So do I want the blade on this one, being a bigger, tougher knife, to be 90 thousandths? Maybe not. You know, in the handle, being so much thicker does make it 10 times more ergonomic. So, you know, I kind of like it, but I also kind of wish we had a slimmer profile one. Maybe, you know, like the same thing without the scales. I don't know. It's hard to say without having it in hand, you know? So that's not really a nitpick. It's just kind of, you know, it's something you got to know right away, that when you get it, you know, it's not a slim, sleek knife like the original one was. This is more of a tougher, more robust knife. Now, the next thing I do want to say went away, so it does not matter now, but when I first got it, I opened it about 10, 15, 20 times, and then I gave it a light spine whack, and it failed. But it is not failing anymore, so all I did was used it a little bit, and open and closed it 100 times. So it just needed to break in. And I constantly say that. Don't take a knife out of the box and test it for failure, because it's probably going to fail. The knife's probably been sitting in a box, you know, for a while. The knife is brand new, so the lock bars, they're made to break in over time. These lock bars have tension going that way. They're pushing themselves deeper underneath the scales, or sorry, underneath the blade. So you want that to kind of push in and create friction before you start smacking it. So, you know, in this quickly, very quickly, locked up, rock solid without no failure. So that's not a negative. It's just, you know, a forewarning. Don't just grab any knife, you know, and spine whack it without opening and closing it a bunch, allowing the lock bar to click in. Now, this one, the next one, I do consider a little bit of a negative, but listen to this. The acoustics are nowhere near as good as the original. Listen to this one. That lockup, you can really hear it. I love that pop. Now this one, and I guess when I was anticipating this, I was expecting just like a larger version of this one, but it is quite a bit different. So, you know, that to me, is that a negative? I mean, yes, to me it is a little bit of a negative, but it's also, you know, maybe not that big of a deal because maybe it's, you know, obviously when you want something bigger and better, you're going to have changes, right? So, you know, it just is what it is. But it is a thing, though, that, you know, I noticed, you know, these do feel quite a bit different from one another, you know, not only in size, but in a lot of other ways as well, which is fine. But yeah, man, all in all, man, I would absolutely love to see a bearing version that is with full titanium. Whether it's a frame lock or a liner lock, I don't care. Probably a liner lock would probably be better. Other than that, other than those things, which are not big nitpicks, this thing is so badass. I think that this thing could be the ultimate work knife for somebody. I truly think that. You know, this is probably going to be a knife that I recommend to people who want a premium work knife. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, nobody wants a premium work knife. People want, you know, a good, solid tool, you know, like a PM2 lightweight, or sorry, Mannix lightweight, something like that. Something that's not too crazy price, but something that's tough, reliable, and whatever. But there are going to be some people that, you know, are knife guys and they really want a high quality tool in their pocket for while they're at work. You know, I did that, you know, especially in the end when I was working at the distillery. And, you know, when I was in construction, you know, I guess I was working with knives that I beat on a little bit more, so I wasn't carrying high-end knives. At the time, I thought they were, but they really weren't. But, you know, anyways, I personally now would probably be working with, you know, certain knives and being very happy to work with specific knives, especially the knives that get better and better over time, that take a lot of abuse. Like I said, like a Spyderco Mannix. Anyways, but this knife to me would be another knife that I think would serve me very, very well on a job site or just period. Even if you're not somebody working, you know, like there's so many different jobs. Everybody should carry a knife, so it doesn't matter what you do for a living. But I'm just saying there are certain jobs that require a knife a little bit more than others, and this one would be a phenomenal work knife. Just a phenomenal EDC, a phenomenal, you know, everyday carry, 100%. So, is it everything I wanted it to be? No, maybe not, but that's okay. That is okay, and I think sometimes we hype up something in our head a little bit too much, but it is something that I do still love and I think is very, very awesome, and it's definitely going to be a highly recommended knife, and I'm definitely going to be featuring it in a lot more videos because it is that badass. So, work hard, stay tough, until next time, peace.